Hello, friends. So let's talk about the budget. What happened in the budget, and we will stick with the narrative of the budget. What we have, the speech given by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. So yes, it talked about three basic themes, and it is aspirational India, economic development, and caring society. Within these three themes, she talked about different subcategories like agriculture, wellness, and education within the aspirational India. Then within the economic development, there are industry, infrastructure, and new economy, which is very important here. Caring society, which is the third category, within which we have women and child, social welfare, culture and tourism, and environment and climate change, which is of global importance these days. So let's have a deep insight on the three major categories, and thereafter we can definitely switch to the governance, the financial market, infrastructure financing, and disinvestment plans what the government have, and fiscal management plans. So this comprises of part A of the budget. Thereafter, it's part B of the budget where we talk about the direct and the indirect taxes, where she uh, gave the salaried people, the income earning people, another opportunity to change the tax structure, to leverage the new income tax structure. Then there's talk about dividend tax structure, corporate tax was already dealt before and reiterated in the budget, and definitely some annexures to detail and support the statements of money. Now, so this is the budget of FY 2021, which is the coming financial year, and was presented on the Parliament on 1st February 2020, uh, which is a new norm being created by this dispensation. So the first was the greeting to the Speaker, and she said, "I rise to present the budget of the year 2020-2021." And the introduction, she started with the great mandate what the Modi government got, and the statement was something like this. In May 2019, Prime Minister Modi received a massive mandate to form the government again, which we all have witnessed. With renewed vigor under his leadership, we commit ourselves to serve the people of India with all humility and dedication. That is the commitment with which she started her speech. People of India have unequivocally given their Jan Adesh, their mandate, for not just the political stability what we are offering since past more than 5 years, also reposed faith in our economic policies, which is very important to understand because when the Congress was the previous dispensation here, in the 2012, 13, 14, the economy of India was in a real bad shape with twin deficit hitting very badly on the Indian economy, current account deficit and the fiscal deficit. This is the budget to boost their incomes and enhance their purchasing power, the people who have given us the government mandate. Only through higher growth we can achieve that and have our youth gainfully and meaningfully employed. And that is very important because in India we have time and again seen the issue of disguised employment, where a lot of people are dependent on the same piece of agriculture and not completely employed and not rightly employed. So the productivity is very low. So we need good employment. We need high productivity involvement of the people of India, the youth of India. Let our businesses be innovative, healthy, and solvent with use of technology. So the reference of technology is very important, that the governments of the 21st century acknowledge the usage of technology, artificial intelligence, blockchain, the startup culture, because these are the ones which will lead, which will lead India in the global space. For today's youth, born at the turn of the century, for every member of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes who seek a better life, very important to keep in mind the lowest strata of the society. For every woman wishing to stand up and get counted, for every individual from the minority sections of our society, this budget aims to have your aspirations and hopes addressed. And that is why the theme of Part A, first section, is Aspirational India. And the government is highly committed on the aspiration of the weakest, because the weakest links, when their aspirations are met, definitely the ones in the higher strata will definitely be gaining as well. We wish to open up vistas for a vibrant and dynamic economy with a gentle breeze of new technology. The technology is now and then used across the budget. This vibrant India shall be a caring society which shall attend to its weak, the old, and the vulnerable among its citizens. We see the careful crafting of the words here in the budget speech. The people of the lowest strata or the weakest section, the old, the women, the minorities, they all are carefully, the SCSTs, all are carefully being incorporated, and rightfully as well. During the 14 to 19 mandate, what we had, our government brought a paradigm shift in governance that we all have witnessed. This shift was characterized by twin focus: fundamental structural reform and inclusive growth. Again, the term inclusive growth, we all know the banking all across the India. All across, everyone was given a bank account, direct benefit transfer became a reality, and corruption and the middle layers got removed through the use of technology. So that inclusive growth is well observed by the people. Fundamental structural reforms, we saw demonetization, GST, all of these, and many more. Structural reforms in terms of laws as well. Even beyond that, the big decisions like Kashmir, removal of Article 370 is one of the biggest reform done. So big decisions have been taken. The relationship with Pakistan, every decisions were well taken, enacted well, and we have reached somewhere after that. It's not that it was a policy paralysis, which was the case of the previous dispensation. Fundamentals of the economy are strong, and that has ensured macroeconomic stability. That is something will be discussed deeply later as well. Inflation has been well contained. However, we see spiking numbers these days, but that is expected to die down and will not survive for long. Banks saw a thorough cleaning up of accumulated loans of the past decade, and then they were recapitalized. This is important to understand. When banks, we talk about the NPAs were piling and piling and piling, and of the order of very high magnitude, subject to a lot of investigations. And today, the government has, and the RBI as well, has clearly issued a lot of checks, like corrective measures should be taken for all the NPAs by all the banks across. Beyond that, there's a lot of restructuring going on in the banking industry, in the NBFCs and all, to re-strengthen the financial institutions and clear out on the NPAs. And now giving loans is much more careful activity unlike before. Fundamentals of the economy are strong, and that has ensured macroeconomic stability, inflation contained, banks, cleaning up of accumulated loans, NPAs and all. Companies as well, provided an exit through the IBC, bankruptcy code. Through that, the companies can also exit, sell themselves, and NCLAT is there, NCLT is there. Several steps of the formalization of the economy were taken. So we are aware of all of those. Details will follow. Now, of the structural reforms, GST has been the most historic in our country. This is making it like a uniform market all across India and for most of the goods. For more than 90% of the products and services, it will be one market, India. So it expands the reach of business persons. It expands the reach of companies all across India without getting hindered by a lot of local taxes and state taxes and all different layers of taxes. So their analysis becomes easy, their adherence to the indirect tax becomes easy, and there's less duplicacy of taxes, and segregation of goods and services have been a big task. So that is something taken care of with this one GST. It's the most historic reform, there's no doubt on that, and it required a lot of commitment from the states as well as center. The government did that. Its chief architect is not with us today. I pay homage to the visionary Arun Jaitley, who was the chief architect of the GST. At the time of the rollout of the GST, he said this, I'll quote. Quoting Arun Jaitley. It will be an India where the center and the states will work harmoniously towards the common goal of shared prosperity. The unanimity of the constitutional amendment and the consensus of the GST Council highlights that India can rise above narrow politics from the nation's interest, for the nation's interest, very important. With the GST, neither the state nor the center loses its sovereignty. In contrast, they will pool their sovereignty on decisions of indirect taxes. This is a historic statement, pooling of their sovereignty in the domain of indirect taxes, because that comes under purview of both, and coming together both authorities in a federal space in a cooperative manner, that is historic, and that is the conception of Mr. Arun Jaitley. Next point. True to the vision of the historic structural reform, the GST has been gradually maturing into a tax that has integrated the country economically. It has consolidated numerous taxes and cesses to one tax and facilitated formalization of economy. Now, instead of 100 indirect taxes, cascading effect, lot of evasions, checks, balances, corruption, it's one tax, that is GST. Easy to adhere, no corruption potential. And formalization of the economy is facilitated as well. It has resulted in the efficiency gains in logistic and transport sector, the most significant sector, logistic and transport, which connects the country in terms of goods and services, all transports from one state to another. So they are benefiting. It's very easy for them to adhere to the taxing system now in the current regime of GST, unlike before. The turnaround time for trucks has witnessed a significant reduction to the tune of 20% due to the abolition of checkpost in GST. The dreaded Inspector Raj vanished. Most important. Next point, it has also led to significant benefits to MSME by way of enhanced threshold and composition limits. How? The effective tax incidence on almost every commodity came down substantially. This is something of importance here. Tax reduction has happened, effective. Through several rate reductions, an annual benefit of rupee 1 lakh crore has been extended to the consumers. So the consumers are also off burden of lot of tax of the order of 1 lakh crore. Tax reduction has happened for us as a unit. It amounts to 10% reduction in overall tax incidence. An average household now saves about 4% of its monthly spends on account of reduced GST rates. So it's empowering the consumers as well as the suppliers, the transporters, and all across the business person. So it's a win-win for both the sides. And it's a great structural reform, if I may say so. Next point, Philip. During this phase of maturing, GST did face certain challenges that is accepted by the government. That the transition may never be smooth. There will be shocks, and the government is having liquidity shocks due to the transformation from indirect tax regime to the GST, multiple tax regime to one tax regime, that is GST. Government is facing liquidity shocks. They have a lot of liabilities to give to states. There have been delays. A lot of challenges are there. This was natural as transition was daunting. GST Council has been proactive in resolving issues during transition. So we have a council which is trying to resolve. And the last 2 years, if we see, we have added more than 60 lakh new taxpayers. A total of about 40 crore returns were filed. 800 crore invoices were uploaded and 105 crore e-way bills were generated. There has been extensive engagement with stakeholders. A simplified new return system is being introduced from 1st April 2020 to have better adherence and to have improved system all across indirect tax. A former Prime Minister has once voiced the concern that the fruits of the welfare schemes were not reaching the intended citizens. The common and deserving citizen was only receiving 15 paisa per rupee sent to him. So it's only 15% was trickling down to the beneficiary, and the rest is all gone in the intermediaries, corruption and whatnot, leakages. Guided by Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, our government and the Prime Minister added manifold speed in that trickling down. It's a direct benefit actually, and scaled up the implementation of schemes and programs that directly benefited the poor and the disadvantaged. I wish to list out only a few examples. A welfare scheme with direct benefit transfer embedded in them. Directly money is going to the accounts of the poor households. 100% money going. There's no leakage. That only 15% is going to the beneficiary. Sanitation and water as provision of basic needs and as a measure of preventive health care. Schemes like Aishman, all 100% benefits reaching to the beneficiary. Healthcare, Aishman Bharat talked about. Clean energy, Ujjwala and solar power. Financial inclusion, credit support, insurance protection to vulnerable sections, pension scheme, all of them going 100%. Digital penetration with broadband and UPI. Affordable housing for all under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. All of these happening. The milestones achieved are unprecedented, globally recognized and benchmarked against international indices. Next, if we look into this strategy, changed the established order of a few individuals concerning cornering most of the benefits and was appreciated by the people. This had immensely positive outcomes. Growth rate 4% in the 50s we had, 6% in 80s and 90s. 14 to 19 we saw 7.4% on average with inflation, averaging around 4.5%. It's pretty stable. It is worthwhile to note that inflation was close to 9% in the last 2 decades, last millennium, and ranged to 10.5% in the UPA era. Now, between 2006 to 16, India raised 27 crore people out of poverty, which we are proud of. We are now the fifth largest economy of the world. India's FDI got elevated to the level of $284 billion in the past 5 years, reaching up to $300 billion. Earlier it was around $200 billion, 2010. Central government debt, that has been the bane for our economy, got reduced. Less than 50% of the GDP. It is, as of now, which is very healthy. Most of the European countries are up to more than 100% of the GDP. Greece, Italy, and all fixed economy. They're all suffering from this plague, and the credibility of the national economy is in question. We are less than 50% for the central government. With this backdrop, our government shall work towards taking the country forward so that we can leapfrog to the next level of health, prosperity, and well-being. We shall strive to bring ease of living for every citizen. Very important. I'm mindful of presenting this budget in the backdrop of two cutting developments. It's very important to acknowledge these two cutting developments in the backdrop. Proliferation of technologies, especially analytics, machine learning, robotics, bioinformatics, and artificial intelligence. We need to be wary of these. Cannot be ignored, should not be ignored rather. Second, the number of people in the productive age group in India, 50 to 65, highest, and we need to leverage this huge demographic dividend. We need to reap this. Technology people. On this backdrop, this budget will narrate an excellent story ahead. I'll take pause on this part. Thank you.